in the ABC, no one in law enforcement or the law or politics or the media ever put any substance of any specific allegations to me at all. I was aware over the last few months of a whispering campaign. Had the accusation ever been put to me before they were printed, I would have at least been able to say the only thing that I can say, and likely the only thing that I'm ever going to be able to say, and it's the truth, and that is that nothing in the allegations that have been printed ever happened. Even now, the only information I have about the allegations is what has been circulating online and in certain media outlets. The allegations appear to be about a period in early 1988 during an end-of-school debating competition at Sydney University. I was 17 years old and the other person was 16. We were both selected with two others on the Australian Schools debating team, and we went to Sydney University for an international competition. It was a long time ago, and I'd always remembered it as a happy time. But I can say categorically that what has been put in various forms, in allegations, simply did not happen. In this last week, I have tried to do what I've tried to do all of my life. Respect the rules and the processes and the law. I was determined to follow the process set out by the AFP Commissioner, and it's a process, because of my background, I know well, to not comment on allegations through the media because it risks prejudicing any investigation. So I've waited until the New South Wales Police concluded their consideration of the matter, and staying silent, following the rules, was a very difficult decision.
The 2021 Australian of the Year, Grace Tame, has taken aim at the Prime Minister over his initial response to rape allegations made by a former Liberal staffer. Brittany Higgins alleges she was sexually assaulted by a senior male colleague in a minister's office in 2019. Scott Morrison said after he watched an interview with Miss Higgins, his wife Jenny urged him to think about it as a father of two daughters.
It shouldn't take having children to have a conscience. And actually, on top of that, having children doesn't guarantee a conscience.
To supplement on that. Just one more quick one on that. In May in 2019, he said that he hopes that in a sense that he could create an atmosphere where survivors could be believed. He said it was really important that survivors have the confidence when they come forward that they would be believed. Do you think those words ring true now in the way he's handled that?
Clearly not. Oh, it's not surprising to me at all. Cover-up culture, the abuse of power is not unique to Parliament. So it's not necessarily these individual cases, it's the issue itself that is going to keep inspiring me to do this work. I was doing this work before it dominated the national stage, you know, and it is heightened right now because it's happening in the centre of our country in Parliament, but like I said, it's not unique to Parliament. It happens everywhere.
Well, Grace Tame's press club address today is set against a backdrop of numerous allegations of sexual misconduct against people in positions of power in society. For more, I'm joined by Nicole Lee, who's a family violence and sexual assault activist. Nicole, it's great to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me in.
So let's talk about the press club address by the Australian of the Year, Grace Tame there. What's your response to her speech? I mean, does her very candid and brave approach about her experience help survivors? Do you think at all she's helping to change the landscape?
Yeah, she definitely is, and it helps to signal to other people that when you do speak up, that you will be received with some empathetic response, which is contrary to a lot of the things that we've seen in the past. And having somebody, a sexual assault survivor, in such a position, being recognised by multiple different places across the community is really empowering for a lot of sexual assault survivors that have been disempowered or been disbelieved or haven't had that opportunity to be recognised or acknowledged or even believed. So it's the position she has at the moment is speaking volumes to so many people across so many aspects of community.
She also said that we as a community need to hear the ugly, which she's referring to the ugly, dark stories, to help those survivors of abuse walk into the light. How important is that, to have the confronting stories told?
Well, it's deeply, deeply important. Our stories aren't there as something to be, commodified or to be capitalised on, and they're not there just as feel-good triumph over adversity. We have to sit in some of those uncomfortable and in that space of discomfort to really analyse why we are uncomfortable with this right now and how we can utilise that element of discomfort to influence the way we respond to people talking to us about, when they disclose, the way we interact with others in our community and society in regards to all gender-based crimes. And also, how can we use these uncomfortable positions and that feeling of being uncomfortable and being motivated by being uncomfortable to influence, if we're writing policy or within our politics as well and within our everyday jobs and workspaces.
You mentioned policy there. What needs to change with respect to policy? You say that we need to hear these stories and then utilise those to make it a better area for victims of abuse to come forward. So what are the policy changes that you'd like to see?
Well, I'd like to see people sort of understanding, where the barriers are for disclosure, even if it's within a workspace. What are the attitudes within that workspace? And we can only actually find those things by actually hearing the things that have gone wrong, by actually sitting in that uncomfortable space of we haven't got this right yet, and trying to work out, well, what is going wrong? What are these barriers? Where are we dismissing people? Why aren't we addressing or responding to people in the way that we internally think that we should be, and how can we change our policy to address these things? And we don't find those things that are going wrong if we're constantly looking for people to give us that, all of these bad things happen, but it all came out in the end. My life is great now, and I triumphed. We have to sit in the things that have gone wrong, and we can only get that by listening to people. And we shouldn't have to just wait for people to disclose as well. We should also be making proactive steps rather than putting the onus on survivors to constantly be the ones saying, hey, you've made a mistake. Hey, your policy became a barrier, or I was told that it wasn't a work issue. We shouldn't be waiting for victims to be highlighting the systemic failings to be looking at how we can actually address them as well.
And what are some of those immediate proactive steps that could be taken in workplaces right now across the country?
Well, engaging with the different, sexual assault sector, having experts coming in and working within workspaces, overlooking your policy, looking at even gender equality policies and things that you have within your workspaces as well, around, what is the imbalance, what are the power imbalances within workspaces, and how can we start shifting these so that people feel more comfortable, they feel safe, they feel secure, and they feel that they are going to be respected if they did come forward with a problem.
If I can draw you to something else that Grace Tame was asked about today, were those comments by the ADF chief. When she was asked if, how much damage do these words make, or what should, she just says these comments shouldn't be made. What sort of comments would you prefer to hear being made by our leaders, rather than saying, attractive is criticised as dangerous?
Well, they're emblematic of all of those community narratives, all those victim blaming narratives that are very pervasive across our community and have been for many, many years. So they're things that we thought we'd left in the past. But it's what I would like to have heard on that stage from somebody in power was that. If you have been violated, if somebody has done something like, has assaulted you, then please, please, please don't feel that you are alone. There are people that will listen. There are support services available. There is the police that you can go to, and that's not ultimately the main place that you can go to. But, you're not alone, and there are people and there's services that you can speak to help you move forward, to, help you regain who you were and what I guess to just give you back your humanity rather than don't go out alone, don't do X, Y, and Z. But no, there are people that will believe you. You're not alone, and nothing. Sorry, I've just lost there. But nothing justifies what happened to you.
If I can ask you to comment on, we saw Minister Porter today categorically deny these allegations of historical rape today. What do you think should happen now?
I honestly think that there should be a completely external investigation into all of these allegations that isn't has anything to do with any political party whatsoever. It has to be completely independent of politics and investigating everything that's gone on here. I don't really want to say much more than that, as we know that it is very, very tense at the moment. And I think for the public to be able to, and for every survivor to feel at some peace with everything that's been going on, because this is touching on so many people across our community, so many survivors out there that are feeling scared and alone right now. We need an independent investigation into all of these allegations that we can trust and that we have some faith in, because at the moment I don't have a lot of faith in our political parties.
Okay. Nicole Lee, as always, it's great to talk to you. Thank you for bringing your insight.
Thank you.
And if you or someone you know needs help, please contact 1800-RESPECT by phone or by their website. Or if you're experiencing distress, please contact Lifeline on 13 11 14. Well, the extent of racism against Chinese Australians has been laid bare in a new report from the Lowy Institute. A shocking number have been subject to physical threats and verbal abuse, but the vast majority of Chinese Australians still say they feel accepted by Australian society and are happy to call this country home.
Other than off my back, you around, yeah? You Asian dog? Yeah? Yeah?
Chinese Australians say they've experienced a marked increase in racism.
Where did he come from?
Australia's diplomatic flare-up with China, coupled with the challenges of COVID-19, spurred racial vilification towards people of Asian appearance.
There are increasing cases of racism against Chinese and Asians in Australia during the COVID-19 outbreak, but also before that.
In a landmark survey, almost a fifth of Chinese Australians say they've been physically threatened or attacked in the past year because of their heritage. The majority, 2/3, say the COVID-19 pandemic is to blame. But about half believe the diplomatic spat between Australia and China contributed to their personal experience.
Politics become my daily life, like which side are you on, the Chinese government side, the Australian government side.
Opinions are divided about Beijing's influence in Australia. Only half of Chinese Australians are concerned about China's influence, compared to more than 80% of the broader population.
What we can see is general public support for taking a strong stance against some of China's behaviour.
The way China handled the pandemic has been looked upon much less favourably among the broader Australian population. Only 5% of Australians favoured China's system of government above our own, compared to more than 40% of Chinese Australians.
Opinion in Australia has very much hardened towards China. The Australian public have soured in the way they view China.
It's clear that data shows this country is divided, but the vast majority of Chinese Australians say it's still a good place to live.
Overseas now, and US President Joe Biden says the country expects to have enough vaccines for all Americans by the end of May, 2 months earlier than anticipated. There are now 3 COVID vaccines approved for use in the United States, but some communities, particularly African American and Hispanic, are missing out. North America correspondent Barbara Miller reports from Los Angeles.
These people are the lucky ones. 65-year-old Dora Alaman tried for days to secure an appointment over the phone. Going online wasn't really an option.
I did attempt it, but since I don't understand computers very well and all of that, I wasn't able to.
Patients at this clinic largely come from low-income communities of colour, but many of them are missing out on vaccination as more tech-savvy, professional and often whiter residents get in first.
Across LA County, we're seeing that the vaccines are going to more affluent areas, and it is not necessarily those who are hit hardest by the pandemic who are receiving the vaccine.
Whereas in wealthier areas of the city, 1 in 5 people have now had the vaccine. In an area like this at South Park, it's only 1 in 25. And that's amid a population where 1 in 5 people have had the virus.
The inequality stems not just from lack of access to the vaccine, but also a lack of knowledge and trust.
We haven't seen any clinic offering it or nothing like that. So we're just waiting right now.
It's coming out too soon, and I don't know the research or anything about it, you know.
Have you tried to make an appointment?
Yeah.
And what happened?
They say later.
LA is now opening back up despite a California strain of the virus contributing to a surge in cases in December and January.
Correlation doesn't prove causation, right? But what we do think is that it helped to increase the magnitude of that surge.
California's coronavirus death toll has risen above 50,000, about 1/10 of the US total from the pandemic. Getting vaccine distribution right is a matter of life and death. Barbara Miller, ABC News, Los Angeles.
The United States has imposed sanctions on senior Russian officials over what it described as Moscow's attempt to poison the opposition leader Alexei Navalny last August. The sanctions target 7 close associates of the Russian president, including 4 directly accused of targeting Mr Navalny and his supporters. 14 businesses and other entities linked to Russia's biological and chemical agent production were also hit with punitive measures.
We are exercising our authorities to send a clear signal that Russia's use of chemical weapons and human rights abuses have severe consequences.
The US coordinated the sanctions with the European Union, saying its intelligence community is confident Russia's Federal Security Service was behind the attack on Mr Navalny. Russia denies any wrongdoing and says it's being unfairly punished. Well, 6 children's books written by Dr Seuss decades ago have been pulled from publication because they contain racist and insensitive imagery. The books, including If I Ran the Zoo and To Think That I Saw It on Mulberry Street, were originally published between 1937 and 1976 and contain caricatures of Asian and black people. The company set up to preserve the author's legacy says it pulled the books because they portray people in ways that are hurtful and wrong.
People need to realize is if Dr. Seuss can get cancelled, what can't be?
I think we can't erase the past. I think we can learn maybe and we can help our kids to interpret the information they read.
One of Dr Seuss's most popular books, The Cat in the Hat, has also come under fire but will continue to be published. Well, the price of puppies has surged in the past year amid a spike in demand during the COVID-19 pandemic. And the trend is expected to continue as hobby breeders struggle amid a crackdown on rogue operators in the industry. Trish Smith breeds a small number of Basset Fauve de Bretagne puppies each year, and she joins me now. Trish, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Can you tell me a little bit about your breeding operation and how you rate amongst the behemoths and the little guys in the business?
We're very much a little guy. We have a litter once a year, once every 2 years, not very frequently, and it's not so much that I'd even call it an operation. It's a hobby. It's something that we do as a family. We show dogs. I show with my 15-year-old daughter, and breeding is an adjunct to that we do on occasion.
And what's this legislation that you're concerned about for your business and other hobby breeders?
Okay, so the issue that they've got with this legislation is that it's really geared towards exactly that, to a business, and we're not a business. This is simply a hobby that we do as a family occasionally. So the legislation is set up to deal with businesses, and to the requirements are aimed at commercial businesses. It's not aimed at a family who's just living with their pets.
So what sort of requirements are there that you're finding cost prohibitive?
Some of the big ones have been enclosures that have to have 1.8 metre high fencing, or to have boundary fences that are 1.8 metres high. Our dogs live in the house, so and if they're not in the house, they're out in our yard, which is an acre with farm fencing, because we live rurally, but that would be not compliant. So we've had to invest in small pens that our dogs have to be kept in during the day, if I'm not out supervising them in the yard.
So in October, we saw the New South Wales Government and RSPCA revealed that they'd created some sort of puppy task force, if you like. And I guess there's this suggestion that hobby breeders are collateral damage in all of this, but this crackdown is really making sure the puppies are treated well. So where do you strike a balance when it comes to animal welfare and small business viability?
Look, it's one of those things. There definitely has to be an audit, but I think that there needs to be recognition that we're not actually a business. Like, that's, I think, is one of the sticking points, is that we aren't a business. We're simply people who are living with our dogs and have a hobby that is breeding. They need to consider that a lot of the red tape and a lot of the requirements that are included as must-haves and also as recommendations, they're not geared towards family life.
Are you aware, given that you're in the industry, about these larger big puppy businesses that are really big and perhaps not looking after the animal welfare as they should?
I've definitely heard of them, like other people have, but they're not something that are a part of my life. I don't actually know anyone who is a commercial breeder. I know of people in my area, but they're not people who show dogs. They're not people who are hobbyists. They're businesses. They're not sort of in our same circle, if that makes sense. I don't know of them any more than the average person does.
So what are you suggesting then needs to change? Are you saying hobbyists shouldn't be checked on at all, or where would you like to see this all land?
I think what most of us are saying is that there really needs to be a differentiation between a hobby breeder and a commercial breeder, and that the really sort of a lot of the audits are really nitpicking on very small things that have nothing to do with animal welfare. Animal welfare is vital. We should be audited, we should be inspected, but we shouldn't be held to the same standards of a large business.
Okay. I was really hoping we might see one of your puppies there tonight, Trish, but maybe next time. Thank you so much for joining us, Trish Smith. And it's time now for a check of the weather. Here's Graham Creed.
We've still got a tropical cyclone sitting off the far northeastern tropical coast of Queensland. Now, tropical cyclone Niran is actually expected to intensify overnight, but it then will start to move further away from the coast as we move through Thursday. And it has been moving away from the coast today, so conditions have eased somewhat through those coastal areas. But as it strengthens, we could still see some very strong and gusty winds along the coastal fringe and also the nearby islands. We've also had some very heavy rainfall through the southwest of Western Australia, well above average falls through many centres. Quite a few have recorded around 2 to 3 times the March average rainfall. Although rainfall totals at this time of year are generally relatively light, it's all associated with tropical moisture feeding in from the north and a mid-level disturbance helping to turn that into widespread showers and thunderstorms. It does slowly start to ease off as we move through tomorrow. We've still got a few isolated showers along the coast of New South Wales and parts of southeast Queensland, but they also become a little bit more isolated as we move into tomorrow. We've got fairly strong winds for Tasmania. We're looking at the potential of further showers about the west and south of the state. 1 or 2 isolated showers also through the far eastern parts of Melbourne and into the southwest of Gippsland. So fairly cloudy conditions on and south of the ranges in Victoria. A few showers around for Hobart. We're looking at dry conditions for Sydney, though still the possibility of a shower in Sydney, and that heat still sits over most of the inland. Showers and storms again for Perth, but they should begin to ease off as the day progresses. During Friday, most of that rainfall really contracting into the more eastern parts of the coast, and then they should gradually start to dissipate as we move through the day. This is as this high pressure system helps to push that moisture further away. The heat still lingers about Western Australia and the Northern Territory, but conditions are easing in somewhat through the southern parts.
Graham, thank you. And remember, you can keep up to date at news.abc.net.au and, of course, on iView. I'm Catherine Robinson. Thanks for your company. I'll have more on our top stories up in a moment. Do stay with us here on ABC News.